welcome back for the 10th Total Tactics testing video. This week we're going to look at a 4-4-2 tactic, which for whatever reason is really popular. I don't really get it. I'm not a huge fan of the kind of football that a 4-4-2 tends to lead to, but a lot of you are, and I've gotten a lot of comments to try to tackle this particular shape. So that's what we've done this week. Once again, the tactics are created and tested in the Total Tactics testing database. It is a 4-league system that you can download on our Discord server, which the link for is in the description. All the instructions are there. It's just a save game file, and you simulate a season to get your results. The 4-4-2 is difficult, especially on FM, because I think a lot of tactics really benefit from having a defensive midfielder in the hole, and that's something we've had on a lot of tactics that we've had so far. So what kind of things did I try to make the 4-4-2 work? Let's find out by taking a look at the tactic. Before we get into the tactic, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the video. I really appreciate it. But this is the 4-4-2 shape that I've kind of come to, and it's been through a lot of trial and error and a lot of, trying to decide what kind of tactic do I want it to be. I want it to have some width. I want some of those goals to come from those wingers, but I also want it to have some depth to the midfield, which is one of the problems with the 4-4-2. So I've tried to create that depth with inverted wingbacks. So if you look at the tactic, the way it's lined up here, it has this double CM attack at the middle, right? They're going to be very advanced. And then these double inverted wingbacks are going to kind of fill in the space behind them. So in possession, it's almost like a 4-2, these guys come into here, this kind of space. The defensive wingers, when they have the ball, run deep, but when they don't have the ball, they stay kind of high. The CM attacks move forward. It almost feels like a 5-back the way these guys kind of become midfielders, and the DWs almost act more like wingbacks instead of like wingers. So it's an interesting shape, and hopefully we have I've got some interesting highlights to show you that kind of illustrate some of the ways that this 4-4-2 system sort of works. The advanced forwards are just set to take fewer risks, shoot less often, which is something really similar that we've always dealt with. Take more risks though on these CMs. I really want them clearing out space for the IWBs to really kind of squeeze in behind them, and because those players also are set to take more risks. That's native to the inverted wingback on attack position. So if we really want to get this drive through the middle, we're going for this risky central overload. That's sort of the idea behind the tactic. These defensive wingers are also set to take more risks. So we're trying something new here with this tactic, is really trying to make sure yes, they will stay back because they're a defensive winger, and that's kind of hard-coded into the role, but we want them crossing from the byline. We want them getting further forward. So despite being a defensive winger and having that be sort of baked into their responsibilities, I am trying to get them to really get to that end line and be offensive as well. So it's just standard ball playing defender roles as well. And then when you look through some of the other instructions, we are trying to pass into space, and because of that, we are not doing the very high line of engagement, just a higher line to try to give the space balls some chance to do some damage. And I think you'll see the strikers do a ton of damage in this tactic, and we'll talk more about that when we go through the results, but there's a little spoiler over here, at least from the Underdog League, how prolific these strikers can be in this tactic. But let's take a look at some of the goal highlights and see this shape in action. All right, we're going to start this play with David Ospina, and what I want you to notice about this highlight is how the IWBs create multiple layers to your attack and progression up the field that wouldn't otherwise be there if you were just playing traditional fullbacks. So Ospina's going to start the ball here, and you can see the two defenders here in the picture, but the IWBs are much higher up the pitch. I'll pause it here, and there you can see them both here on the pitch, Dallas and Di Lorenzo. So you can already sort of tell, I hope, that the IWBs really do advance much further than you would normally think. So Dallas just hits a ball over the top here. Zielinski's going to run into the corner, and then the second thing I want you to notice is the offensive positioning of the defensive wingers. This is Kostic. Kostic Kostic is the left defensive winger in this lineup, and over here on the right, it's Politano as the left defensive winger. So they are both presenting themselves as options. Like, he's not wide open. There's a lot of players kind of in between him and the ball, but Politano is wide open, and both the strikers, both the CM attacks and Di Lorenzo are pushing into the midfield here. I mean, into the penalty box. Like, this is a wingback in the penalty box here. This is just like how overwhelming this tactic can be on offense. So what ends up happening here is a little bit of like ball movement in the box here. Muriel's safest pass is to Politano, who just like hammers it into the side netting. But it's really important to have watched in that highlight the defensive wingers getting involved in the offense despite their role description, and the IWBs creating that midfield progression to give the tactic just a little bit more levels and kind of stability at the back. On this highlight, it's very simple. This will not take long, but it just goes to show you how pass into space can really function in one of these tactics, and how keeping that higher line instead of the very high line of engagement gives it the space for it to work. So Bremer's going to play a ball here to Kostic, who's a defensive winger, so is coming pretty deep to get the ball, right? He's on the same level right now as the inverted wingback Mario Rui, who has already started to tuck in, and Di Lorenzo over here has done the same. So again, remember, this is where DMs would normally sit, and on this kind of tactic, instead you've got this bank of four, where up here in the top corner of the screen is the other defensive winger, the two IWBs, and the other defensive winger. So they are creating that layer in front of the defenders that wouldn't normally exist here inside a 4-4-2. So let's watch what happens here. Bremer to Kostic. Kostic, one dribble, and then boom, over the top. Osimhen has tons of space, time, and area to cover to be able to use his pace to get behind the defense and then score. Like, simple goal, but one that really kind of illustrates both pass into space and showed you another example of how the layering in front of those two center backs occurs to give the tactic more depth and ability to progress the ball. On this final highlight, we are going to watch some build-up play that ends up resulting in the defensive winger being the primary creator for the final product, which I think is something that I did want to see when I was developing this tactic, is how can the defensive wingers be the primary creators as well, and I think that definitely is happening here. So let's take a look at what happens here. So the opposing goalkeeper just hammers it long, right? Bremer wins that header down to Muriel. So here Osimhen runs into a little bit of traffic, but the way his eyes are looking, he can see Kostic, who's his defensive winger, right? Does he hold the ball up and feed it to him here? Does he try to play a ball into this gap? And he dwells on it a little bit too long, does end up holding it up and then finding Kostic. So what can Kostic do here? First off, look how dangerous it is, right? We've got Fabian, the CM attack. We've got Osimhen, the striker. We've got Muriel, the striker. We've got Di Lorenzo, the attacking inverted wingback, and Mario Rui, the attacking inverted wingback, and Zielinski on attack as a CM, right? We've got 6 players centrally here, just the 2 defenders back, and then on the other side of the field, keeping this fullback honest, is Politano, right? So there's just tons and tons of runners. Kostic takes this ball wide, and before he crosses it, we'll pause it again because we've got Fabian with short option. That short option's important because one of the central defenders, Lozano, has to spy him, which just creates a massive pocket in the box for Osimhen to run into. Maybe this guy, Gonalons, should have stayed in front of Fabian so that this defender could drift back towards the 6 and kind of cut this cross out. But instead, like, Osimhen just has a huge pocket, and you saw all those runners previously, and then it's just elementary what happens from there. The CM attack run is just devastating here. It is what created that pocket for Osimhen to attack, and an easy goal and an easy cross from Kostic. All right, I mean, here's my admission of this tactic, is it's not perfect. It's not done yet. I've seen a lot that I liked about this tactic, and I think it is something that is very close to being working. But I challenge you, the viewer, to really kind of take control of this for yourself, make the tweaks you need to have it succeed in your saves, because I do think it's very potent and can score a lot of goals. and I'm mostly happy with the test, very encouraged. Getting this to work in the Elite League has proven very challenging for me, at least. I don't have a ton of familiarity with this success, with this shape, but we've done very well in the other 3 leagues. So I do want to walk you through some of these results so you can take a look at them in a little bit more depth and see why I'm so encouraged by this tactic. So we'll take a look first at the Elite League results. Look, it's not great, right? 39 points here. We've conceded 100 goals, by far the worst in the division. Well, there's Juve down here with 95, but scoring 74 though is decent in this division. So I think that with some defensive adjustments against the big teams, this tactic could be a force to be reckoned with, and even in the Elite League. I just need to figure out what those are, and you can be a part of that as well. With the balanced league, we've done very well. 98 goals scored, which, like, you could see in those highlights how many attacking players there were on some of these movements. 52 allowed is a little bit high, but again, 5 wins on the bounce to end the season, 98 goals, tops in the division. Like, it's a good year, and definitely a good result. 72 in the balanced league's a touch low, but the peripherals are very nice, and the a plus 46 goal difference usually gets a better points total than 72, so I'm not super worried about that. And then the average team league, 78 is a pretty good result in the average teams league, and the team kind of scuffled coming into the end of the season as well. Could have easily topped 80. 93 goals for and 40 against is extremely good output here from this tactic. A plus 53 goal difference in the average teams league is very good. Some of you have complained on the Discord about how weird and sort of difficult the average teams league is, and this 442 seems to have done a pretty good job cracking it. And then finally, in the Underdog League, 97 points. We almost got to 100. This is definitely a tactic that you can use to beat up on lesser sides, because you are getting 8 players forward on these offensive movements to really try and put the pressure on teams that you think you have a big advantage on. So if anything from this video that's a takeaway, putting a balanced like multi-channel, multi-layered attack in play will beat most teams. Like, on the very best teams, will you get kind of eviscerated on the counter? Probably, and you should make some changes or maybe play a different shape in those games. But in terms of really pushing your advantage and taking the game to these lesser teams, this tactic does a great job of that. 121 goals scored is an extremely high number in the Underdog Teams League, only allowing 38, plus 83 goal difference. Just an excellent result. Like, this is a top 1% result in the Underdog League, and something that kind of gives me like excitement about working on this tactic some more. But it's not perfect yet. Like, I'm not going to be able to put out the perfect tactic every single video. And so hopefully you enjoy some of the process and some of the weaknesses that we see sometimes in these tactics. Let's look quickly at the Balance League squad, and that way you can kind of see like where the goals are kind of coming from. So we sort by appearances here. It is like, both the strikers plus 25 goals here, and then the inverted wingback on the left with 10 assists. The assists on the right are coming from Politano, who's playing as a defensive winger. So like, there is a lot of the offense is coming from out wide back inside, and the strikers are passing to each other, and the CMs are getting involved in the scoring too. Zielinski and Fabian combined for 18 goals. Like, there's a lot of offense from a lot of different places. Obviously, we score a ton of goals with this tactic, but the strikers, like, if you want to get a lot out of your strikers, this tactic is definitely a way to do that. And hopefully you can, and we'll find some joy with a 4-4-2. And I think it's a little bit different take on it as well. So maybe it will give you some ideas to kind of advance and like change the way you've been playing 4-4-2 in your save. But if you've liked this series so far, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe again to the video, and let me hear from you in the Discord as well. Get joined up, sign up, run your own tests, figure out how good your tactics are, and just be a part of the conversation. On the Total Tactics Discord server, we have drafts with different tactic stipulations instead of player stipulations that are super fun. I'd love to get you involved in those as well. Make sure you also follow me on Twitch, where you can see me play as Esbjerg in the Danish League, trying to win the Champions League. That link is also down in the description. And thanks for watching again the Total Tactics testing series. I'm really enjoying making these videos, and I can't wait to bring more tactics to you here on YouTube.